long time. Thank you very much for the presentation. I want to sort of push you a little bit. What I mean by push you is to try to push you to develop some of the points you mentioned. And what I mean by that is this. You are in the agreement that ornament is needed, as you said. I am in agreement with you that ornament is needed to dress our buildings, that we have to tell our story. I think that, however, and it's not really a criticism, but I think we need to understand why we're asking this question. And what do I mean by that? I think that modern architecture, we are all impacted by modern architecture so much that most of our buildings don't have ornament. Lots of the buildings that you showed in your slide presentation were either in villages, some of them were in, cities, you should go, for instance, and some other places. The question I have is that why don't we see more of those ornamental buildings in cities? And I think for me, people have different reasons why that is the case. Most many banks, for instance, in Lagos, that have ornaments on their buildings. And I believe that the reason why is that it's a direct result of the Industrial Revolution that happened in the 19th century. It's a result of the way we have industrialized our processes, even design, the way that we design in studio. We don't necessarily, we think about glass, we think about steel, we think about the most up-to-date building materials, but we don't really think about ornament per se. So where I'm going with this is that I think that we are psychologically we are impacted psychologically to think about designs without ornaments. And I think a lot of that still has to be developed. Why is it that psychologically as a people, we don't necessarily think about ornament. We have to ask, it's a comment more than a question, but I wonder if you want to respond. Do you agree with me that psychologically, ornament is like an afterthought right now, and we have to pose this question?
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Teriba, for that observation. Now, you said something with which you started the question, that is, most of the buildings that were shown on the slide, apart from the Denmark Sunwoko's design in Ibadan, most of them are more of the rural area. Now, one of the problems that we had, it's more of a value system. We have this idea that anything that is foreign is good. And if your design is just meant to be about the glass, the steel, the what have you, of modernism, then why ornamentation? And sincerely, that has affected the kind of time we spend in the studio and the quality of the studio production. But the reason why discourse like these are on is for us to be conscious of it, to be deliberate. Like I mentioned even in the past, that we need, as architects, we need to be deliberate. It is not for us to put a building to get, when you have done, when your client gave you a design to do, and you have not thought of the ornament. From what Venturi said, you have just given the guy a shelter. And if the man needs a shelter, he does not need you as an architect to design around about himself, because such a client only needs the structural stability, which is the perimeters, and he also needs the utilities. That's all he needs. He's not considering the venosters, which is the beauty in which ornamentation stays. So it means, as an architect, when you design without consideration for ornamentation, or you are shortchanging your clients. and in all good conscience, you have not done a good job. The man engaged you for a design as an architect, but you have shortchanged him and gave him a shelter as a product. So it's for us to do more. It's not about government. No government will tell you, why are you putting ornament in your design? No, not Nigerian government. So if the government will not say, why are you putting it? So why shouldn't we put it? It's for us to have the consciousness of the fact that anytime you do a design without considering the ornamentation finishing, then you have just left it in the hand of the artisans. And the artisan will begin to tell the client, oh, I want to put stone here. Why don't you add the stone to that place? Because, and the reasons are different. Artisans want to add more stone work on that building so that it can increase the amount of money it's getting or getting off from you. Why you are the client, you don't know better. Because most of the time, once Nigerian architects do a design and they treat it at the client, they move on, forgetting that some other profession may make a mistake and their mistakes are buried 6 feet below the ground. When an architect makes a mistake, he lives with that mistake. If you make a mistake on, let me give you a local example now. You make a mistake on a design on Maryland in Ikeja. Anytime you drive past that place, even if nobody is querying you, your conscience will tell you that architect, you have not done well enough on that design. And that is the reason we want to begin to heighten our consciousness, and we should know that we need to do the best and do a complete package for our client. Thank you. Any other question? Then a question from Oluwatoyin. Okay. She says, why don't we see ornamentations in our architectural designs today? Okay. Well, I think I've mentioned that particular in passing. Okay, I saw Theophilus Shitu. Can Theophilus Shitu have the floor? Theophilus Shitu. You can unmute yourself. Theophilus Shitu. Okay, Mike Ajufo. Mike Ajufo, can you unmute yourself? Mike Ajufo. You can unmute yourself, Mike.
All right. Thank you. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. It's a great privilege to be here to listen to you. I mean, I have learned quite a lot. I just want to quickly add to what Dr. Teriba, said, and follow it up with a question. We live in a day and age where globalization is gradually sweeping up every aspect of our day-to-day activities. Globalization is affecting our thinking as architects. Globalization is affecting the economies of the world. I mean, how do you bring in ornamentation into this? I know that ornamentation is, kind of in sync with traditional architecture, but I don't see ornamentation as being in sync with modern architecture, which flows with globalization. But don't get me wrong, I think it's a great idea if we can inculcate it, but I think you need to put up a form of advocacy drive. There has to be a design, like like for instance, you showed the banks, who are kind of putting up some sort of ornamentation. I know Central Bank also has some of their buildings, with they adorn them with some ornamentation. But for residential buildings, most clients right now tend to think towards modern architecture. I mean, they are bringing back designs of the 50s without ornamentation, without window hoods, without skirtings, just plain old flat walls, flat roofs. I mean, parapets. How do we show them the importance of this ornamentation? Because I tell you, if you do a design for a man in Kano, and he's thinking globally, I mean, he wants to have a modern house. He just came into some amount of money, and he wants you to build for him, and you do this design, lovely design, and then you put these ornaments and all these things, and he tells you if he wanted a local house, he would get a local builder. How do you change the mindset of such a person, sir? That's my question.
Okay. Thanks so much, Architect Mike Ajufo. Now, you've your question. Thank God you're also an architect, and I believe we as architects need to begin to tell our story. As a person, I should ask myself, what kind of house am I living in? If I, as an architect, cannot live in a house or a building that will tell the story of my identity or my values, I have no business in selling it to a client. Now, secondly, during the course of my presentation, I showed the projects in Ghana. It depends on how you deploy the ornamentation. The particular project we're looking at in Ghana that was mentioned with the Kente facade, the developer are not even Ghanaian. The developer is not Ghanaian. The architect is not from Ghana. Neither is the installer of those facades. But the architect was able to convince the developer. And they look at it and, wow, what has changed? Nothing else has changed beyond, instead of putting the bland ACP designs that can find every other place, let us give it identity. And I want to assure you that was a selling point in that particular building. I know it's not going to be very easy to get to start today, and by next year, by this time next year, we see fully ornamented building everywhere. I want you to know that what we are starting today, we are re-engineering our thinking system even as designer. We are having a paradigm shift in the way we put in to our clients. And we are setting a new paradigm, setting a new standard that we need to tell a story, that we need to be deliberate in telling this story. So every building that you just design as an architect, and you let the client to be bringing in the artisan to be applying ornaments on, obviously that building has been taken off your hand as an architect. And that is the reason why the advocacy is for us to make it total. And I want us to look at it again, that if you make it total, we are creating job even for ourselves. But what you are saying is that some of those guys that have to come from some neighboring countries to put pendatives and do some of this thing for us, we are like pushing them out of business while empowering the natives to do much more of what we want to achieve. And from the comment section, I also see someone making a comment. Shokwason says that it could be deployed with the ironmonger. Yes, that is in your metal works, your burglar grills, it can be fully ornamented, and you can introduce motifs and symbols that will tell your story. Thank you. Now, any other question? If there are questions or further comments, I'm encouraging us to come on board again by this time, 2 p.m. by same time on Thursday, 2nd of July. On that particular, they have come in today to speak generally about indigenous ornamentation in architecture. We have panelists that will be coming on, and they're going to take into details each and every item that I've spoken about today. And I want to encourage us to kindly come in, join in, and I can assure us that at the end of this series, we are going to be part of the new story that we want to tell. Thank you. Thanks so much.